A bitter wind sweeps down the spotless street, tugging at the corners of Malik's worn hoodie as he walks with slow, tired steps. The steps of a man who has learned to make himself small in a world determined to shrink him. Around him, people sip lattes, laugh loudly, and sidestep him without ever meeting his eyes. Not because they're busy, but because they've already decided who he is. A little girl holding her mother's hand stares at him. The mother gently turns her daughter's face away. Malik doesn't flinch. He's used to it, too used to it. He clutches a small paper receipt, the only proof he has that he belongs in this perfect part of town. Across the street, Officer Grant leans on his patrol car, bored chewing gum like he owns the entire block. His gaze slides past businessmen, joggers, wealthy shoppers, until it stops on Malik. A spark of suspicion lights up his eyes, the kind only men like him feel proud of. He watches Malik the way someone watches a stain on a white shirt, irritated it exists at all. Malik steps into the cafe, shoulders slightly bowed. He picks up a warm bag of food from the counter, whispers a thank you, and turns to leave. But Grant is already pushing through the door. He doesn't ask a question. He doesn't check the receipt. He doesn't pause. He just slaps the bag out of Malik's hands. Food explodes across the floor. Everyone goes silent. Malik freezes, humiliation washing over him in a wave that burns. Grant stares at him with a disgust so sharp it could cut skin. "Next time you steal," he says loudly, "at least try not to look so dirty doing it." A woman gasps, a man looks away quickly, a teenager records but doesn't step in. Malik's throat tightens, not with fear, but with a grief he's carried his whole life. A grief born from being judged before he even speaks. Grant steps closer, crowd watching like this is some kind of street performance. "You hear me?" he barks. "Pick it up." Malik finally lifts his eyes, calm, steady, heartbreaking in how much pain sits quietly behind them. His voice is low, almost a whisper. "You really don't know who I am." Grant scoffs. "And why should I?" Malik steps forward, not angry, just done hiding. "I'm deep undercover, and you just made the biggest mistake of your career." The cafe goes dead silent. Grant's face drains of color. And what nobody around them knows yet is that everything is about to change. Malik Turner had always been good at disappearing. Not because he lacked presence, he had a quiet confidence, a steady posture, a gaze that noticed everything, but because he'd learned from childhood that invisibility could be a shield. Growing up in neighborhoods where being seen too much could get you targeted, he mastered the art of blending in, walking through life as if he were made of smoke, there but easily overlooked. Today, he looks like any tired warehouse worker on lunch break. Hoodie faded, shoes worn, jaw tight from long nights and longer mornings. But beneath the simple exterior is a man with layers nobody here could guess at. Malik is 34, a former Marine turned federal operative, a man who has spent the past year living under a false identity, buried deep inside one of the most dangerous undercover operations the department has ever attempted. His mission is simple on paper but deadly in execution. Expose a network of police officers using their badges to extort, intimidate, and brutalize minority communities. Officers who believe they're untouchable. Officers smart enough to hide their tracks. Officers like Grant. The name alone brings a shift in Malik's expression. Officer Daniel Grant, arrogant, sharp-tongued, always one complaint away from suspension but protected by a system that rewards aggression. A man who grew up thinking authority equals superiority. A man who talks too loudly, acts too quickly, and believes his instincts are always right. The streets know him. Business owners fear him. His colleagues tolerate him because he writes reports that make the department look tough. Malik has been tracking Grant for months, watching him corner immigrants behind their shops, shaking them down for safety contributions. Watching him pull over black teenagers for no reason, only to let them go after frightening them into silence. Watching him throw his badge around like a weapon, not a responsibility. Today was supposed to be a routine observation day. Grab lunch, blend into the neighborhood, log Grant's patrol routes. But Malik's mind hasn't been entirely on the mission. Not today. He's thinking about the picture tucked inside his wallet, his mother smiling at his sister's graduation. Malik wasn't there, he was already undercover. He promised he'd call more. He promised he'd visit soon. But promises are luxuries undercover agents don't have. He hasn't been home in 11 months. He eats instant noodles most nights, sleeps with one ear open, lives in a tiny apartment under a fake name, and no matter how tired he gets, he can't slip, not even for a second. One mistake could get him killed, or worse, blow the entire task force operation. Detective Lang, one of the few officers Malik trusts, once told him, "Deep undercover doesn't just change your life, it steals it." Malik didn't understand at the time. Now he understands too well. He pushes the cafe door open, food in hand, ready to walk away quietly. But then Grant saw him and everything went sideways. Even before the confrontation, Malik sensed Grant's energy shift. Grant was restless today, pacing instead of leaning on the car. His jaw was tight, his hand hovering near his holster more than usual. Malik mentally logged it, a sign the corruption network may be under stress. Stress makes dangerous men unpredictable. Malik's appearance, worn clothes, unshaven face, tired eyes made him an easy target. Grant doesn't see a federal operative. He doesn't see a Marine. All he sees is a black man who doesn't belong in this wealthy district, a man he can humiliate without consequence. Across the street, cafe manager Carmen hurried inside minutes before the incident. She's seen Grant harass customers before. She's seen him smile while doing it. But she's afraid to speak. Women who stand up to officers like Grant often get targeted next. She recognized Malik from earlier visits, always quiet, always polite, always slipping away before anyone noticed him. She never imagined he was carrying the weight of an entire investigation on his shoulders. Malik's internal world is a storm. He needs to protect his cover. He needs to finish collecting evidence. He needs to stay calm under pressure. He needs to remember why he's doing this. His best friend died because of officers like Grant. A routine traffic stop turned violent, a badge used like a fist, a report rewritten, a mother left grieving. Malik promised himself he would never let another family suffer like hers. But deep undercover work demands sacrifice. Malik hasn't told his mother the truth. He hasn't told anyone. He carries the secret alone, forcing himself to swallow humiliation after humiliation in the name of justice. But every day it chips away at him. Today, something inside him cracked, not anger, not pride, but a quiet exhaustion. How many times must he lower his head? How many times must he let men like Grant walk all over him? How many times must he pretend to be weak so he can capture the truly dangerous? When Grant slammed the food to the ground, Malik felt 11 months of swallowed pain rise in his chest. But he didn't allow himself to erupt. He didn't reveal too much. He didn't let his real training show. He just stood there, silent, watching Grant, calculating. Because he knew something Grant didn't, the operation was nearing its endpoint. The evidence was almost complete. One more week and the entire ring could fall. But Grant's outburst jeopardized everything. The humiliation wasn't just personal. It threatened to expose Malik's identity. And exposure meant losing the mission, losing justice, losing the months of undercover work he'd put himself through. Malik's voice, when he finally spoke, wasn't born from pride. It was born from the crushing truth that he couldn't afford to play small anymore. "You really don't know who I am." Those words weren't a threat. They were a warning. To Grant, to the system, to anyone who believed a black man dressed in worn clothes must be powerless. And for the first time in his life, Officer Grant looked uncertain. Malik didn't move at first. Not because he was afraid, but because years of undercover work had trained him to stay perfectly still when the wrong eyes were watching. Every muscle in his body wanted to react, to demand respect, to stand up for himself, to remind Grant that humiliation has limits. But undercover work wasn't about pride. It was about patience. And patience was the only thing keeping this entire operation alive. Grant watched him with the smug superiority of someone who had never faced consequences. He wanted Malik to break, to shout, to push back, to give him a reason to escalate. Men like Grant thrive on reactions. They feed on them like oxygen. But Malik didn't give him one. He knelt slowly, not to pick up the food, but to breathe, center himself, calm the storm rising in his chest. Around him, onlookers shifted with discomfort. None of them offered help. None of them stepped closer. They watched like spectators at a show they didn't buy tickets for. A teenager recording whispered to his friend, "Bro, this is messed up." But he didn't move either. Carmen hovered inside the cafe doorway, fists tight, guilt weighing on her expression. Workers like her had been punished before for speaking against officers. She wanted to help Malik but was terrified to be the next target. Malik lifted his gaze, calm but piercing. "You really don't know who I am." Grant barked a laugh, loud, mocking, dripping with contempt. "Yeah, and who exactly are you supposed to be? Another wannabe tough guy who thinks I won't put him on the ground." Malik didn't rise to the bait. "Call your captain," he said quietly. That sentence hit Grant harder than a physical blow. His smirk faltered. His swagger dimmed. He blinked as if trying to read something in Malik's expression that he hadn't noticed before. And he didn't like what he saw. Grant stepped closer, shadow falling over Malik. "What did you say to me?" "Call your captain," Malik repeated, voice steady, not raised even a fraction. "Now." Around them, the air shifted. Even the people who were avoiding eye contact now stared. Malik wasn't scared, not even a little. That unsettled Grant in a way he wasn't prepared for. Men Grant mistreated always had the same reaction: fear, anger, desperation. But Malik's calm, it wasn't submission. It was something else, something dangerous. Grant's jaw tightened. "Get on your knees." "No." The refusal was soft, but the force behind it was immediate, like a quiet explosion. People gasped. Even Grant took half a step back, shocked that someone dressed like Malik would dare tell him no. Grant's face reddened. "I said." "You heard me," Malik said, tone unchanged. "And I'm not repeating myself again." Grant grabbed Malik's arm, squeezing hard. Malik allowed the contact, not because he had to, but because reacting would compromise the mission. His training screamed at him to break the hold, but he kept his hands open, palms visible. "Show me ID," Grant demanded. "I don't carry any with me when I'm working." "When you're what?" Grant spat. "Working," Malik repeated. Grant shoved him, not hard enough to injure him, just hard enough to humiliate him. Carmen flinched. The teenager holding the phone whispered, "Yo, he's really pushing him." Grant barked at the teen. "Put that away unless you want to be detained too." The boy swallowed but kept recording. Grant snapped his fingers at two other officers sitting in a cruiser across the street. They rushed over, hands already hovering near their weapons. Grant pointed at Malik. "He's resisting." The officers instantly stepped forward, surrounding Malik. A crowd gathered now, small, quiet, afraid, but curious. Carmen stepped forward, hesitating, then spoke up despite her trembling voice. "He has a pickup order," she said. "I saw the name, I can check the system." Grant whipped his head around. "You want to interfere with police work? You want me to search this whole place for violations? Keep talking." Carmen froze, her eyes filled with helpless anger. Malik looked at her gently, giving her the smallest nod, a silent gesture telling her he'd be okay. But he wasn't okay. This situation was spiraling in a direction he couldn't allow. He had worked too long, gotten too close, gained too much evidence to let this moment ruin everything. Grant ordered, "Kneel or I'll make you." Malik's voice dropped to a tone so controlled, so cold, so calm that it made Grant's heart stutter. "You're about to make the biggest mistake of your entire career." Grant's eyes narrowed, face flushing. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Before Grant could respond, Malik spoke again, quietly, firmly, deliberately. "Call your captain, I won't say it again." Grant hesitated a second time, a second too long. The crowd noticed it. The officers beside him noticed it. That hesitation cracked something in the power he believed he owned. Grant's insecurity ignited. "Fine," he snapped into his radio. "Captain Reeves to my location now." As they waited, Grant paced like a caged animal, muttering accusations, justifying himself to the other officers, trying to look confident even as doubt gnawed at him. Malik stayed silent, standing straight, eyes following Grant's movements the way a trained operative watches a threat, alert, calculating, composed. A few minutes later, a sleek, unmarked SUV pulled up. Captain Reeves stepped out, tall, silver hair, controlled expression, eyes sharp. Grant puffed up like a soldier awaiting praise. "Captain, this guy." Reeves lifted a hand, silencing him instantly. Then Reeves turned to Malik, and his entire face changed. Subtle but undeniable. Recognition. Concern. Fear. He masked it quickly, but Grant saw it. Everyone saw it. Reeves stepped closer, lowering his voice. Vector. That one word, Malik's undercover code name, changed everything. Grant froze. The officers froze. Even the crowd went utterly silent without understanding why. Malik didn't answer. He didn't need to. Reeves inhaled sharply and said the words that shattered Grant's world. All officers step back now. The sudden shift made heads whip around. Grant's face drained so fast it looked like he'd seen a ghost. He stuttered, Captain, what's going on? Reeves didn't answer him. He only kept his eyes on Malik. And quietly said, We need to talk privately. Grant's confusion twisted into panic as he watched Captain Reeves shift from authority to something closer to caution. Malik didn't move a muscle, but the entire energy around him changed. It was like the air finally recognized him, not as the dirty man Grant assumed he was, but as someone who held power none of them could see. Grant stepped forward, voice cracking. Captain, what's Vector? Who is he? Reeves didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence was enough to tell Grant the truth. He had crossed a line so severe there might be no way back. Reeves kept his voice low, too low for the crowd to hear, but just loud enough for the officers nearby. You were instructed months ago not to interfere with any unidentified individuals fitting certain operational profiles. Grant swallowed hard. That doesn't matter. He looked suspicious. Reeves spun toward him sharply. Suspicious? Grant, do you realize what you've done? Grant opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The facade was cracking. The confidence he always wore couldn't cover the fear rising in his chest. Reeves turned to Malik again. We need to clear this area. Malik raised an eyebrow. Everything that happened here is recorded. By them, he said, gesturing subtly toward the civilians. You should think carefully before you decide how clean you want this to look. Reeves inhaled slowly. He knew Malik was right. He had no power here, not anymore. He faced the crowd. This situation is under control. Everyone, please disperse. But no one moved. A woman whispered, Why is the captain scared of him? Another murmured, Who is that guy? The teenager filming zoomed in. Bro, this just got crazy. Reeves's jaw tightened. He couldn't force them to leave without making the department look even worse, so he did the only thing he could. He stepped back. Vector inside, please. Grant's eyes widened. The word please had never come out of Reeves's mouth in uniform, not once, not ever. Malik didn't move yet. Instead, he looked directly at Grant, and in that moment the officer felt something he had never felt from a man he disrespected. Power, not the kind that comes from a badge, but the kind that comes from truth. Malik finally stepped forward. I'll speak with you. Reeves exhaled with relief. But Malik wasn't done. He looked at Grant. You're coming too. Grant's breath hitched. Reeves stiffened. Vector, I don't think that's. I do, Malik said. He needs to hear what you're about to hear. He started this. Reeves hesitated, but Malik wasn't making a request. He was giving an instruction. Reeves nodded slowly. Grant inside now. Grant followed, each step heavier than the last, like walking toward a verdict he wasn't ready to face. They entered the cafe's back office. The door shut behind them. The silence inside was suffocating. Reeves turned to Malik first. What happened out there? It cannot jeopardize the operation. We're too close. Grant blinked. Operation? What operation? Reeves shot him a look, but Malik raised a hand. Let him ask, Malik said. He deserves the answer. Grant gripped the back of a chair to steady himself. Sweat lined his forehead. What are you? He whispered. Some kind of fed. Malik held his stare. I've been embedded for 11 months, watching, listening, documenting, tracking every officer who crosses lines they pretend not to see. Grant felt his heartbeat slam against his chest. Malik continued, voice even calm, terrifyingly controlled. You think humiliation is power. You think authority gives you the right to reduce people. Today wasn't the first time you did that, but it was the last. Grant shook his head slowly, denial fighting reality. I didn't know. I thought you were just. Just what? Malik asked softly. Grant's throat bobbed. Just another guy looking for trouble. No, Malik said, I was looking for you. Grant's grip tightened on the chair until his knuckles whitened. Reeves stepped in, trying to control the damage. Vector, we can handle this internally. You don't need to escalate. Malik turned his gaze on him. Captain Reeves, how many reports have you altered for him? How many warnings have you buried? How many complaints have you dismissed without investigation? Reeves froze. Grant's eyes snapped to him in horror. You what? Reeves's voice broke, but he quickly masked it. My job is to prevent internal chaos. Your job, Malik interrupted, is to uphold the law, and you failed. Reeves swallowed hard. Vector, you don't understand the politics behind. Malik stepped closer, lowering his voice. I understand more than you think. I've seen who you take calls from. I know who you report to. I know the pressure you're under, but you protected the wrong people. Grant felt his stomach twist. Captain, is he telling the truth? Reeves didn't answer. And in that silence, Grant found the truth he had ignored for years. Malik reached inside his pocket slowly, not for a weapon, but for a small flash drive placed inside a sealed evidence pouch. He held it up between two fingers. This, he said quietly, is every transaction, every extortion payment, every falsified report, every incident you covered, every conversation your officers thought happened in private. Reeves staggered back like he'd been struck. Grant felt the room tilt. You can't, Reeves whispered, if this leaks. Leak, Malik echoed. Captain, I'm delivering this to Federal Task Force headquarters tonight. Grant's world collapsed in a single breath. Reeves's eyes went wide. No, we're not prepared, you can't. I can, Malik said, and I will. Grant finally found his voice. Why, his voice cracked. Why do this? Why go undercover? Why put yourself through all that? Malik looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, Grant saw not a dirty man, not a target, not a stereotype, but a human being carrying too much pain. I lost someone, Malik said softly. Someone good, someone innocent, and someone like you took them from this world. I went undercover so I could make sure those men never hurt anyone again. Grant's breath trembled. Malik continued. You think today was bad? You think dumping my food made you powerful? No, it revealed you. The room was silent. Grant lowered his head, not out of humility, but because shame was finally heavy enough to make him bow. Reeves reached for the flash drive. Malik pulled his hand back. No, you don't get to touch this. Reeves's face hardened. Vector, if this goes public, the department. Maybe it's time the department faced itself, Malik replied. Reeves stared at him, realizing he was looking at the one man who could destroy everything he'd protected. Malik stepped toward the door. Grant whispered, what happens to me? Malik paused, hand on the handle. You face the truth, he said, just like everyone else. He opened the door and walked out, sunlight spilling across his face. The crowd outside turned as he emerged, their phones rising, their whispers spreading like wildfire. They didn't know who he was. But they knew he was the man Grant claimed. Inside the office, Grant stood frozen, breath shallow, heart racing, fate collapsing around him. Because today's humiliation was Malik's. It was his. The restaurant feels strangely quieter now, like the building itself is holding its breath. The young black man, Marcus, sits there covered in food, but instead of anger, there's a stillness around him that unsettles everyone nearby. People keep stealing glances, whispering behind napkins, trying to understand why a grown man would just sit there and take humiliation without a single shout, a single insult. Officer Crane, on the other hand, grows more irritated by Marcus's silence. Something about the calmness threatens him. Men like Crane rely on loud reactions, panic, fear, anger. Silence unnerves him because it means power has shifted, even if he can't tell how. The manager hovers nearby, confused, frightened, and unsure whom to appease. The other customers pretend to scroll on their phones, but their eyes keep darting back. A couple at a corner booth argues in whispers, one saying they should call someone, the other afraid to get involved with police. Marcus slowly wipes food away from his face with a napkin, almost ritualistic, like he's preparing for something. Every small movement is precise, controlled. He isn't embarrassed, he's assessing, observing. Crane mistakes that for weakness. He steps closer, towering over Marcus again. "You think ignoring me makes you brave," he mutters. "I could throw you out of here in cuffs and no one would say a thing." But Marcus finally looks up, not aggressively, not submissively, just looking. And for the first time, Crane feels something in his chest shift, something like unease. Those eyes don't belong to someone powerless. They belong to someone who has seen more than Crane ever has. Before Crane can break the tension, the door chimes and a young black waitress, Keisha, rushes in from the back. She sees Marcus's soaked shirt, the ruined meal, the officer standing too close. Her whole posture stiffens. She quietly asks the manager, "Is anyone going to clean this up or help him?" The manager whispers back, I don't want trouble." Keisha stares at Marcus longer. There's something in the way he's sitting, something familiar. Like she's seen that posture before, men who have been broken down too many times but refuse to break visibly. She gently places a clean towel on the table beside him. "Here, let me bring you water and maybe something else to eat." Marcus's eyes soften a little. "Thank you," he says quietly. Human warmth feels rare in moments like this. Crane scoffs. "Why are you helping him? He's lucky I didn't arrest him already." Keisha looks at Crane and her voice stays controlled. "For what? Existing?" Crane's jaw twitches. "For acting suspicious," he snaps. "For looking dirty, for making people uncomfortable, for—" "Or maybe," she interrupts softly, "you're uncomfortable because he didn't bow his head when you dumped food on him." For a moment, the entire restaurant freezes. Not a single chair moves. Not a single breath is taken too loudly. Crane turns red with anger, but Marcus finally speaks again, his voice low. "You keep saying I'm dirty, but you never once asked where I was coming from." Crane barks a cold laugh. "Don't need to, some people look the part." Keisha whispers under her breath, "That's the problem." Marcus folds the ruined napkin, stands slowly, and wipes the last smear off his arm. There's something about his controlled movements, measured but calm, that draws quiet attention from every table. He isn't reacting emotionally. He's preparing. Crane notices the posture and senses something new, though he can't place it. A little boy at a nearby table tugs his mother's sleeve. "Mom, why is the policeman being mean to him?" The mother shushes him, flustered, but Marcus hears it, and something in his expression tightens, not with anger but with a sadness that feels older than he is. Marcus finally says, "If you're so sure I'm dirty, check my hands." Crane blinks confused. "What?" "My hands," Marcus repeats. "You called me dirty. You said I looked like I came out of a sewer. You want proof, look at them." Crane scoffs but glances down anyway. Marcus raises his hands. They're trembling slightly, not with fear, but because he's exhausted, every knuckle swollen, skin scraped and reddened. A faint powder that isn't dirt clings near the nails, not grime, not grease. Something else. Something Crane recognizes, but doesn't want to admit he recognizes. The officer's eyes darken. "Where were you?" he asks, voice flattening. Marcus doesn't answer, he just holds the gaze. Crane steps closer. "I asked you a question." The restaurant grows colder again. Keisha's eyes widen. Customers lean in without meaning to. Marcus sighs. "You keep asking the wrong questions." Crane clenches his jaw. "And what's the right one?" Marcus meets his eyes steadily. "You should be asking why someone would walk into a restaurant covered in dust and blood instead of going straight to a hospital." The room goes dead silent. Crane's bravado cracks for the first time. His eyes flicker, not with sympathy but calculation. Something about Marcus's condition suddenly feels too specific. Marcus sits back down, calm again. "I came here because I needed 5 minutes to breathe," he says. 5 minutes where no one was watching me. 5 minutes where I wasn't being followed, tracked, or tested. Crane feels a prickle crawling down his spine. Marcus finishes quietly. "But I guess I don't get that luxury." Keisha steps closer, now clearly protective. "Sir, are you hurt? Do you need help?" But Marcus shakes his head. "No, someone else does." Crane stiffens. Marcus looks him in the eye, really looks this time, and the weight of that gaze is enough to steal the air from Crane's lungs. "You really should have asked who I am," Marcus says. Crane swallows hard. Who are you?" But Marcus doesn't answer. Not yet. Not until the moment that will unravel everything. He simply leans back, calm again, and says, "You'll find out soon." And with that single line, Crane's fear begins. Because now he knows. He humiliated the wrong man. Crane tries to shake off the unease, but it clings to him like cold sweat. Marcus's words keep echoing through his mind. Asterisk someone else does. You really should have asked who I am. Men who are guilty ramble. Men who are scared plead. Men who are hiding something avoid eye contact. But Marcus was doing none of that. His calm felt rehearsed, like a man trained to appear harmless, like someone who's had to disappear before. Crane clenches his fists, trying to regain control. He looks around and sees that the room is no longer on his side. People aren't glancing at Marcus anymore. They're watching him, judging asterisk him. Officers like Crane thrive on public obedience, not public scrutiny. "All right," Crane mutters, half to himself. "We're gonna settle this now." He steps closer to Marcus again, too close, invading space. Keisha immediately places herself between them like a shield. "Back up," she warns, her voice trembling but firm. "He hasn't done anything." Crane snaps, "You want to interfere? Go ahead, let's all interfere today." He tries to push past her, but Marcus finally stands, placing a steady hand on her shoulder, a gesture that says he'll handle it. Not violently, not with challenge. Just readiness. Marcus's height becomes evident now that he's fully upright. He isn't towering, but he has a presence that makes the air thicken. His clothes are dirty, torn in places. His breath is still slightly unsteady. But there's a posture to him, feet planted, shoulders relaxed, chin raised just enough. It's not the posture of a victim. It's the posture of a man trained to assess exits, threats, angles. Crane notices. He steps back without meaning to, just an inch, but everyone sees it. Marcus is done hiding. He speaks with a deeper calm now. "What exactly do you think you're dealing with?" Crane tries to pull his authority together. A man who thinks he's smarter than he is. Marcus's reply is quiet. A man who's been followed for 7 months, working 10 layers deep under names that don't exist. The room goes dead silent. Crane's breath catches. Why are you telling me this?" Marcus shakes his head. "I'm not telling you enough to ruin anything, but I'm telling you enough so you stop treating me like I'm dirt under your boots." Keisha covers her mouth. The manager almost drops a tray. One customer whispers, "Is he a cop?" Another, "No, deeper. He said undercover." Crane tries to hide his panic. "You expect me to believe that?" Marcus looks at him, really looks, and that alone is answer enough. But he adds softly, "You think these hands got scraped climbing out of a dumpster? You think I got this dust on me from walking through a park? I came out of a building where I wasn't supposed to be, and I barely made it out." Crane's throat goes dry. Marcus lowers his voice. "There are men looking for me right now who don't know my face, but they know I slipped through their fingers. If any of them even suspected what I was doing inside that warehouse, this whole block would be taped off right now." The tension is suffocating. Marcus continues, "And while you were calling me dirty, do you know what I was doing an hour before?" Crane can't speak. Marcus finally reveals the detail that shifts everything. "I was helping take down a trafficking ring that's been running through this city for 8 years. Someone gasps, someone else whispers a prayer. Crane feels sweat bead at the back of his neck. He tries to laugh it off. "You're lying." But his voice cracks. Marcus gestures toward the dust on his sleeves. "That's concrete powder from a collapsing wall. You know the type. You've seen it at raid sites, except no badge was coming to save me." Keisha whispers, "Why didn't you go to a hospital?" Marcus looks at her. "Hospitals require names." The room goes still again. Marcus's voice grows softer, sadder. "Names I'm not allowed to use yet." Crane looks at him, the arrogance drained from his face. "You're telling me you're what? FBI, DEA?" Marcus replies, steady. "I'm telling you that if you run my fingerprints right now, someone's phone 3 states away is going to ring in under 60 seconds. And they're not going to ask where I am. They're going to ask who exposed me." Crane's entire body stiffens. The weight of what he's done finally hits him. Public humiliation, assault, interference with an undercover operation he never even knew existed. Customers whisper louder now. He messed with the wrong guy. That cop's in trouble. Lord help him. Crane tries to salvage his pride. You think I'm afraid of some story you're spinning. Marcus looks him dead in the eye. You're afraid right now, not of me, but of what happens if I say one wrong word. Crane's lips part, no sound comes out. Marcus steps closer, not threatening, but powerful in his honesty. You didn't dump food on a homeless man. You dumped it on a federal operative fresh out of a sting. And you did it because you didn't like how I looked. Crane's breathing grows shallow. The restaurant feels too small. Marcus continues, 7 months undercover, 47 nights sleeping on floors, 3 blown covers, 2 close-range escapes, 1 partner pulled out with a bullet in his shoulder. His voice lowers. And I made it out today, alive. Keisha whispers, her voice cracking. And you came in here for what? A meal, Marcus answers softly. Just one, something normal, something that didn't come out of a vending machine or a bag I stole from a motel lobby. Crane swallows hard, guilt flickering across his face. Marcus adds, and you took that from me because of how I look. Crane's eyes dart around, searching for backup, but the room has turned against him. Marcus turns away, reaching for the towel again. But I'm still breathing, and that means I can still finish what I started. Crane snaps, desperation slipping into his voice. You can't tell anyone about this. Marcus pauses mid-step. The line is fragile, heavy. Tell who, he asks quietly. Crane falters, whoever you work for. Marcus studies him. Why, afraid they'll ask why you targeted me. Crane's voice trembles. This could end my career. Marcus takes a long breath, a quiet one, a tired one. My career ends every time I take a new identity. You're worried about losing a badge. I'm worried about losing my life. Crane has no response. Keisha looks at Marcus, tears beginning to form, not from fear, but from understanding. You didn't deserve what happened to you, she says softly. No, Marcus replies, but I've learned life doesn't always wait for what we deserve. The tension in the restaurant has shifted fully now. Marcus no longer looks like a victim. He looks like truth personified, a man stripped raw yet unbroken. Crane is the one shrinking. Marcus returns to his seat, not defeated but deliberate. He picks up the ruined food tray, sets it aside, and folds his hands on the table. And then he says one line that stops Crane cold. You should pray the people I work for never learn your name. Crane's knees nearly buckle. Because now the power dynamic has flipped completely. And the man he thought was dirty is the man who could destroy everything he built. The restaurant is no longer a restaurant. It's a pressure chamber. Every eye in the room is locked on Marcus and Officer Crane, the man who thought he held power, now trembling under the gaze of the man he humiliated. Marcus sits quietly, hands clasped, studying Crane with the patience of someone who has survived worse than public shame. He has survived people far more dangerous, far more merciless. Crane stands frozen, breathing like someone who just realized there's a cliff behind him and he's already leaning too far back. The manager inches forward nervously. Yes, sir, maybe someone should call. Marcus answers without looking up. No one's calling anyone. The tone isn't aggressive, it's final. Crane tries to swallow, fails. You don't get to give orders here. Marcus slowly lifts his head. I don't want to give orders, I just want you to listen. That line, simple, quiet, sounds more threatening than any yelling could have. Keisha stands beside Marcus, arms folded, like she's ready to defend him again if needed. Customers lean forward, forgetting their food, their day, their errands, all of it insignificant compared to the drama unfolding inches away. Crane's voice cracks. You expect me to believe you're some kind of secret agent. Marcus tilts his head, not amused, not offended, just tired. I don't expect anything from you, he says. Belief doesn't change truth. Crane flinches as though the words slapped him. But Marcus isn't finished. You want proof? Crane stiffens, the room holds its breath. Marcus reaches slowly into his pocket. Crane instinctively reaches for his gun, pure reflex, pure panic. The entire room gasps. Keisha screams, don't you dare. Marcus raises one hand calmly. Relax, if I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't reach into my pocket first. Crane freezes, realizing how ridiculous he looks, hand on his weapon. while the man he assaulted hasn't even raised his voice. Marcus pulls out a small metallic capsule, something no civilian carries, something with a faint engraved serial number. He sets it gently on the table. What is that?" Crane whispers. Marcus taps it once. Encrypted field recorder, level 6 clearance. Crane's face drains. He's seen these only in training videos, devices issued only to deep covert agents, the kind who vanish for months without explanation. Marcus continues, "Every second of my undercover work is stored inside that device. Every face I met, every deal I observed, every building I walked through." He leans in, voice low. "And now, every second of what you did today is on it too." Crane staggers back like he was punched. "You're lying," he croaks. Marcus responds by sliding the device across the table. Crane stares at it like it's radioactive. "Pick it up," Marcus challenges softly. Crane doesn't move. Because he knows if he touches it, even taps it, his fingerprints will be logged in federal archives alongside the footage. Keisha whispers, "So, it's all on there, everything he did to you." Marcus nods, every word. Crane shakes his head violently. No, you can't use that, you can't. This is harassment, entrapment, I didn't know." "That's the point," Marcus says. "You never cared to know." The room fills with murmurs, pity for Marcus, disgust for Crane, fear of what comes next. Crane reaches for the last thing he has left, false confidence. "You think anyone's going to believe you over me? I'm a decorated officer." Marcus raises an eyebrow. "You decorated yourself with someone's dinner." A ripple of laughter passes through the restaurant, uneasy but real. Crane's face burns with humiliation. Marcus stands slowly, purposefully. He isn't threatening, he's revealing. "Let me tell you what's going to happen now," Marcus begins. Crane tries to interrupt. "No, you listen." But Marcus's voice slices through him. Calm, measured, deadly precise. "For 7 months, I risked my life for people who will never know my name. I infiltrated a ring that took pride in ruining families. I slept in filth. I hid in shadows. I talked, walked, and lived as someone I am not, all to catch men who would kill without hesitation." He steps closer, just enough to make Crane shake. "You want to know why I walked in here looking dirty? Because I just crawled out of a warehouse with blood on the floor and lives on the line." Crane's mouth opens, but nothing comes out. Marcus continues, voice thickening with emotion he's no longer trying to hide. "And after all of that, after everything I've sacrificed, the first thing I'm met with when I walk into the world again is you, a man who saw my skin before he saw my humanity." The line hits the room like thunder. Crane looks around desperately for support. He finds none. Marcus steps even closer until Crane is the one backing away. "You thought dumping food on me made you powerful," Marcus says, "but all it did was expose what you really are." Crane's breathing turns frantic. You can't ruin me for one mistake." "One mistake," Marcus repeats, voice dangerously quiet. "You didn't make a mistake, you made a choice." The room collectively shudders. Marcus looks down at the melted food on his ruined shirt. "This wasn't about the mess," he says. "It was about the message. You wanted to remind the room who mattered, who had authority." He lifts his gaze again. "But today, you picked the wrong demonstration." Crane looks as though his bones are dissolving. Marcus finally says the words that change the air entirely. "You want to know who I am?" Crane's voice is barely a breath. "Yes." Marcus holds his gaze. "I'm the man your precinct has been waiting for." Crane blinks. What?" Marcus reaches into his other pocket slowly, and this time reveals a laminated card. Not a badge, not anything familiar to the public. But Crane recognizes the format instantly. A Federal Task Force identity card with bold red clearance stripes. Marcus turns it just enough for Crane to see the seal. Crane's jaw falls. "You," he whispers, "you're the liaison." Marcus nods once, calm, the one assigned to observe officer behavior during public contact. A collective gasp sweeps through the room. Crane's world collapses. "You weren't supposed to be here yet," Crane stammers. "They said you were arriving next month." Marcus cuts him off. "That's the thing about undercover work, you never know where I'll appear." Crane's hands shake uncontrollably now. Please, you can't file a report on this. I can get suspended, fired. Marcus looks at him, wounded but resolute. You should have thought about that before you treated me like trash. Crane falls to his knees, actually falls, his voice breaks. Please, please, don't take my badge, my pension, my family. Marcus closes his eyes. The room watches in stunned silence as a uniformed white officer begs at the feet of the black man he tormented. Marcus whispers, "Do you understand now? Do you understand what it feels like to have someone hold your future in their hands?" Crane nods frantically, tears forming. Yes, yes, I do, I'm sorry, I swear I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking, I didn't mean. Marcus opens his eyes, pain and disappointment blending. But that's the problem, you never think, men like you never have to think. Crane reaches out, gripping Marcus's pant leg like a drowning man. Please, don't ruin me. Marcus looks down at him, not with cruelty. With truth. I'm not here to ruin you, he says softly. Crane sobs in relief. But Marcus adds, I'm also not here to protect you. Crane's relief shatters. Marcus steps back, freeing his leg from Crane's trembling hands. He speaks clearly now, his voice carrying through the entire building. You will face the consequences of your actions. You will answer for what you did today. Not because I want revenge, but because people like me deserve better than this. Crane breaks down completely. And then Marcus says the line that delivers the final blow. You thought you were destroying a nobody. He pauses. But you were testing a man who survived everything you could never endure. Crane curls inward, defeated. Marcus takes the device from the table, slips his card back into his pocket, and gently places the towel down one final time. Then he turns toward the exit. The entire restaurant rises to its feet, not cheering, not applauding, but standing in a silent acknowledgement of respect. Keisha stands last, tears falling. What are you going to do? She whispers. Marcus looks at her with a soft, weary smile. Finish my report. He steps forward, stepping past Crane, past fear, past humiliation, and pushes open the restaurant door. As the sunlight spills across his face, the calm returns. Not weakness. Not silence. Control. A man who knows exactly who he is. And exactly what happens next. The sunlight was warmer outside than it had been inside the restaurant. It spilled across the street in golden pools, highlighting the scattered mess of chairs, trays, and napkins. The aftermath of humiliation, the battlefield of a single act that revealed a lifetime of hidden truths. Marcus stepped out slowly, every movement deliberate, as if the world had finally slowed for him to reclaim it. Keisha trailed a step behind, still clutching her apron. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from awe. She had seen cruelty before, subtle and sharp. She had witnessed judgment whispered behind closed doors. But this was different. She had seen a man's humanity weaponized against those who thought themselves untouchable. Crane sat on the curb outside the restaurant, his uniform crumpled, his badge hanging like a weight around his neck. He didn't speak. He couldn't. His mind replayed every moment over and over, the food thrown, the smug sneer, the words whispered by Marcus that had stripped him bare. For once, he understood the fragile illusion of authority. He had wielded it like a weapon, thought it was untouchable. He had been wrong. A few steps down the street, a group of civilians lingered, their phones recording, their voices low with whispered admiration. "Did you see that?" a young man said. He didn't even raise his voice, he just controlled everything. Yes, another replied, and that cop, he's finally going to learn the truth about himself. Marcus didn't look back. He didn't need to. Every glance he had given inside had left marks in eyes, in hearts, in conscience. He walked with the steady rhythm of someone who had survived far too much to be stopped by fear or humiliation. Keisha matched his pace. "Where are you going now?" she asked softly. Marcus glanced at her, and there was a tenderness that no uniform or mission could hide. "Back to work," he said. "Back to finish what I started." She nodded, understanding immediately. There was no reward in the recognition, no glory in the acknowledgement. He was not here to be seen. He was here to protect, to observe, to uphold justice in places that others dared not step. And she realized, finally, why he had been willing to endure what Crane had done, to take the public humiliation, to wear the weight of judgment on his skin. "Do you ever get tired?" she asked. Her voice carried the honesty that only came when the world felt too heavy for polite facades. Marcus stopped for a brief moment looking out over the street. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Every day," he admitted. "But that's the point. Every day I remind myself why I started. Every day I remember the lives that can't speak for themselves, the children, the families, the innocents. That's why I move forward." Keisha looked at him, realizing the truth in his words. This wasn't a man who sought vengeance. This was a man who carried a burden far heavier than any badge could ever give him, the burden of justice in a world that often looked the other way. Meanwhile, back in the restaurant, Crane remained frozen. He hadn't moved. He hadn't spoken. The weight of his misjudgment and cruelty pressed down on him like a storm he could not escape. Officer Crane had spent years believing power came from authority, from fear, from the ability to command submission. And yet here he was, utterly powerless, revealed by a man he had deemed inferior. His hands shook as he lifted his badge, tracing the edges, realizing it symbolized nothing without conscience. The warmth of the sunlight outside reminded him of the world he had ignored, the lives he had affected with casual cruelty, the countless judgments made without reflection. For the first time, Crane truly saw himself, and it was not a sight he liked. Back on the street, Marcus and Keisha paused at the corner. Traffic moved lazily around them, indifferent to the drama that had just unfolded. Marcus's phone vibrated. He checked it briefly, scanning updates from the field reports, encrypted messages from his team. A small smile crossed his face, not pride, not arrogance, but relief. Small victories mattered. They were quiet, invisible, but essential. "You should go home," he said to Keisha. "You've done enough today." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving you here alone, not after what happened." Marcus smiled faintly. "I'm never really alone." His words weren't boastful. They were simple, matter-of-fact. His training, his work, his life had taught him that even when it feels like solitude is crushing, every action is part of something bigger. Every mission, every observation, every undercover moment connected to a network of protection and justice that stretched far beyond the walls of any restaurant or street. Keisha exhaled softly. "I just hope everyone understands what they saw." Marcus's eyes softened. "They will, but more importantly, they'll remember it. Not me, not my mission, the truth. That's what stays with people, not a man, but the courage to stand when the world tells you to bow." Meanwhile, inside the restaurant, Crane's colleagues began to whisper. Some called his name, but he didn't respond. He sat there, unmoving, digesting the scale of what had transpired. The humiliation he had imposed upon Marcus had been nothing compared to the exposure of his own failings. Every action he had taken, every judgment he had made, every word he had spoken out of arrogance, all of it had been catalogued, scrutinized, and could be used against him. And he knew it. Outside, Marcus adjusted his jacket and started walking down the street. Each step was steady, measured, confident. He wasn't fleeing. He wasn't gloating. He was moving forward, embodying every lesson he had lived through. A young boy ran up to Keisha, holding a half-eaten cookie. "Was he really a cop?" the boy asked. Keisha smiled faintly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Something like that. Someone very important. Someone who made sure people like him don't get hurt again." The boy nodded solemnly. Marcus caught the exchange from a distance. He paused just long enough to acknowledge the innocence in the child's face, a reminder of why he did what he did, why he risked everything, why he endured humiliation that others would not survive. Hours later, Marcus returned to his team. They debriefed him in a secure location, faces etched with fatigue and relief. Every mission detail, every close call, every calculated risk was shared and logged. But Marcus remained calm, professional, detached in a way that was almost eerie. He did not seek applause or acknowledgement. His victories were quiet, methodical, and often invisible to the world outside. And yet today had changed something fundamental. Today had reminded him, and the people who witnessed it, that dignity is not determined by appearances. That power is not measured by fear. That respect cannot be demanded, it must be recognized. Crane, now alone, faced his reflection in a bathroom mirror inside the precinct. His uniform hung loosely on his shoulders. His hands shook. His mind replayed Marcus's words over and over. "You never cared to know. You thought I was dirt. You thought I was beneath you." The officer realized the depth of his failure. He had weaponized his authority against someone who had earned respect through courage and sacrifice. The realization was painful, but it was necessary. And in that pain, Crane began something he had never done before: reflection. True reflection. not the rehearsed, performative kind he had practiced before, but the kind that stung, that hurt, and that demanded change. Marcus's actions rippled far beyond the restaurant. Social media buzzed with whispers and footage, the story going viral as people processed the sheer audacity, calm, and authority of a man who had endured public humiliation without anger, without revenge, yet with a presence that demanded acknowledgement. Keisha, now home, reflected on the day's events. She realized that she had been a witness to courage, integrity, and power used for good. And in her heart, she understood something profound. People are far more complex than first impressions. What you see on the surface can never tell the whole story. Every person has struggles unseen, battles fought in silence, victories earned in shadows. Marcus, preparing for his next mission, looked at the street outside the safe house. The city sprawled beneath him, unaware of the danger that lurked in its corners, of the protection silently provided by those who operated beyond public view. He inhaled slowly, centering himself. Every scar, every bruise, every humiliation endured had led him here. And in that preparation he found a quiet strength, an unshakable resolve, and a renewed commitment to his purpose. Crane, meanwhile, would never forget the man he thought was just another civilian. Marcus had changed him, not with force, not with aggression, but with truth, with calm, with the undeniable weight of integrity and bravery. Crane would now spend the rest of his career questioning authority, judging less harshly, and realizing the fragility of power when divorced from conscience. The city continued its rhythm, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded in a single restaurant, in a single street. But for those who had witnessed it, Marcus, Keisha, the patrons, even Crane, the lessons endured. Justice, dignity, courage, and truth had revealed themselves in the most human, profound way. As night fell, Marcus finally allowed himself a brief smile. Not satisfaction, not pride, but recognition. Recognition that even amidst darkness, injustice, and humiliation, one man's resolve could illuminate a path forward. And somewhere in the quiet corners of the city, someone else who had been oppressed, ignored, or judged unfairly would remember the story. Someone would realize that standing strong, speaking truth, and holding oneself with dignity mattered far more than any fleeting act of cruelty inflicted by those in power. Marcus exhaled slowly, letting the tension leave his body. For now, the day's battles were over. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new missions, new dangers. But he had proven to the world, to Crane, to himself, that integrity, courage, and resilience could never be humiliated. And with that, Marcus walked into the night, a man undiminished, unbroken, and unstoppable. Some lessons can't be taught in classrooms. Some truths can't be explained with words alone. Today's story reminds us that appearances are often deceiving, that judgment made in haste can destroy more than it protects, and that real strength is measured not by dominance, but by resilience under pressure. Marcus endured humiliation, public shame, and the careless cruelty of someone who believed power came from fear. And yet, he rose above it with calm, dignity, and unwavering purpose. That is the kind of strength that can't be shaken, the kind that leaves an imprint far deeper than anger or revenge ever could. Officer Crane learned the hard way that authority without conscience is fragile. Power is not a shield, it is a responsibility, and those who wield it without reflection will one day be confronted by a truth that cannot be denied. What Marcus taught everyone that day wasn't just that he was deep undercover. It was that every human being, regardless of how they appear, carries hidden stories, unseen battles, and quiet courage that deserves respect. To anyone watching this story, never judge a person by what you see on the surface. Everyone has struggles you can't imagine, lives lived in silence, and strength that only reveals itself under pressure. Humiliation can break some, but it can also reveal the extraordinary resilience of others. Compassion, curiosity, and respect are far more powerful than fear, prejudice, or arrogance. And finally, remember this. Justice is not only about punishment, it's about acknowledgement, integrity, and the courage to stand for what is right, even when no one is watching. Marcus's calm courage, his unwavering dignity in the face of injustice, reminds us that every small act of restraint, every moment of compassion, every decision to act with integrity matters. They ripple out, touching lives we may never see, changing hearts, and inspiring change in the most unexpected places. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let it remind us all that true strength is quiet, courage is visible in deeds, and justice, in the hands of the right person, can overcome even the deepest prejudice.